right, good morning, everyone. I am Katie Doherty, the President and CEO of the Kennebec Valley Chamber. Thank you for joining us this morning for our weekly Chamber Connect sponsored by Central Maine Power. Before we get started, I just wanted to mention this presentation will be recorded and we will send it out to you later today. Please put any questions in the chat box that you might have, and we will have time for Q&A in the end. Today's webinar, we are joined by Tony Cameron, the CEO of the Maine Tourism Association. Tony started his role in March of 2020. Oh, that was perfect timing, right before COVID. After serving nearly 5 years as Director of Marketing and Communications. He previously served as the Executive Director of the Ellsworth Area Chamber of Commerce and Boothbay Harbor Region Chamber of Commerce. He has 15 years of destination marketing and association management experience. Tony lives in his hometown of Brunswick and is a proud graduate of St. Joseph's College of Maine with a degree in marketing. Tony, and with that, I will pass it off to you.
Awesome, thanks, Katie. Don't blame me because the tourism tanked as soon as I got the job. So fortunately, I've been in the industry for a while, but unfortunately, that this was my welcoming to this position, and it's certainly been a challenge, and I only look forward to only better things happening. Typically, I think that we work in one of the best industries in the world, one of the more fun industries. We get to represent all the good things that happen here in the state of Maine, and a lot of amazing and wonderful people who are part of the industry in the state. Unfortunately, a lot of our efforts of late have certainly been totally changed and different as far as what our focus has been on. But I'll start with a little bit of background information as far as who the Maine Tourism Association is to give some people some perspective of who we are and what we actually do as an association. And then I'll kind of go through what this situation or how we've tried to mitigate the COVID challenge and some of the things that we've done over the last few months, and then how we're trying to move forward, and then some upcoming trends that we see as well. So real quickly, the Maine Tourism Association, it's a nonprofit trade association. We're made up of about 1,500 members statewide. We were founded in 1921, so next year is actually our centennial year. And we certainly hope to be as relevant next year as we are this year and the previous years. Tourism is incredibly resilient, but there's never been a challenge that tourism has ever faced like this. Throughout the history of tourism, especially here in the state of Maine, it's overcome world wars, recessions, depressions, and tourism has always been resilient. And we certainly know that tourism will remain resilient. It is the biggest industry here in the state of Maine, and we'll continue to do everything that we can to make sure it sustains itself to keep that up. We work hand in hand with the Maine Office of Tourism, and often there's a lot of confusion between who they are to who we are. And so just to clarify what the difference is the Maine Office of Tourism is a branch that markets the state of Maine. They're the ones that have a tourism fund. They are a branch under the DECD. So they are a government office. We work with them. We are a contractor with the Maine Office of Tourism. We operate the 7 state visitor centers on their behalf. We also produce the official state publication, Maine Invites You, and the official state highway map. So we work hand in hand with them. We also advocate on behalf of the industry as well, which has been one of the biggest focuses that we've had over the last 3 months, is to work with our industry partners and to be the voice of tourism as best that we can during these tough times. And one thing that we always try to put forth is the fact that tourism touches all aspects of our communities. It's not just lodging, restaurants, retail, attractions. It's so much more than that. And so a few years ago, we created a campaign, and I thought that this campaign is as relevant today as it's ever been. And so I wanted to start off today's presentation with this short video, which recognizes that, that we're all part of Maine tourism's economy. And so this was actually a campaign that we produced, I think, about 4 years ago. But I think it's a great way to get things kickstarted today. So give me one moment as I get this going.
I've been in superintendent schools for 15 years. My goal is to keep our kids in this community, and tourism will help us do that. Tourism impacts us in a variety of ways. It offers a tremendous opportunity for our children to access good jobs. It provides relationships, connections to the outside world, and I believe it just enriches the fabric of our community.
We're a small family-owned business. We have about 45 full-time and part-time employees. The tourism industry brings a lot of revenue into my market, and that revenue stays in my market, cycles through my business, my employees, and all the businesses that we support. We don't sell a lot of cars to tourists, but we sell a lot of cars to the people that support that industry.
The wonderful thing about tourism-based economy is that everybody benefits. Tourism-related businesses buy a tremendous amount of product from us. Contractors need nails and screws, plumbers need plumbing fittings, painters need paint and brushes and rollers. Our business wouldn't exist at this level without the tourism industry.
Maine tourism is important all year long. People come to visit, they love the place, and they walk into our office and they'll start asking about properties. We have a significant impact on our local economy because we are hiring inspectors, plumbers, electricians, painters that help us when a property is purchased. It impacts a lot of people.
The tourism industry is very big to my business. I run a boat retail shop. Clark Marine is a year-round business. We have 24 people on staff. The money that comes through here, that all gets put back into our own economy. But you know, we're buying cars, we're buying houses, we're buying our groceries here. We're all paying taxes. I mean, it's a whole big circle.
We provide year-round property services from landscape maintenance and installation to snow removal. The tourism segment of our business has allowed us to grow. It's allowed us to employ people year-round instead of seasonally. I think all of us as citizens and workers in the state of Maine have a responsibility to keep Maine beautiful. And I think we all contribute to that both in our workmanship and our attitude.
The tourists that come to the state of Maine are asking for fresh local selection of fruit and produce. They would like good places to go to eat, and there's plenty of them here. A lot of the restaurants and chefs we deal with are looking for items that can be grown right here in Maine. We buy from about 150 different farmers and pay farmers for what they do, and that in turn puts food on the farmers' tables. It's a wonderful thing for everyone. I'm an educator.
I'm a car dealer.
I'm a real estate agent.
I own a hardware store.
I'm a marine retailer.
I'm a landscaper.
I run a food hub, and I'm part of the
Maine
tourism economy.
So I think that this particular campaign that we did several years ago really hits home, especially today with the fact that right now tourism is really hurting. There's a lot of challenges that face the industry right now, and it doesn't just stop with restaurants and lodging. That it's going to affect everybody, and that everything is connected to tourism's economy, and so I just thought it was a good reference point to start off with today. Going back to when this started, I was, as Katie mentioned, I took this position about a week before things really, I guess, hit the fan, and we all went home. And so I got to sit in the big boy seat for about a week before that happened, and we started to try to figure out how to mitigate the situation. We ended up laying off about 34 of our employees. We have about 90 employees total that work for the Maine Tourism Association. And it hit us as hard as it hit a lot of other people as well. Our main goal was to keep our industry informed as far as with what resources were out there, what was happening for relief, and try to find ways on how we could pull ourselves out of this. We didn't know how long it was going to last, just like everybody else. Nobody had that crystal ball. In early April, we tried to put together we were approached by Poland Springs to put together a relief fund. And so we created a Maine Tourism Relief Fund after we realized that a lot of the industry was hurting and they needed immediate help. And so we worked with the folks at Poland Springs, and they provided us with some seed money, and we were able to put together a Maine Tourism Relief Fund, which gave businesses a one-time, grant, it was a small check. It wasn't much, but it was something for businesses and also for employees to apply for. And so we were really pleased to be able to offer that and to get that off of the ground. There's a lot of moving parts. We're not an organization that's typically doing those types of things. And so we had to work to find solutions to make it work and to make it work legally. And I'm happy to say that we were able to do that. And from that, we got a lot of great publicity, but we also created some stronger partnerships with some other businesses. Bissell Brothers out of Portland chipped in with selling an all-together IPA, where all the proceeds went to the fund. And so we are really grateful for their efforts. Experience Maine Made created some Maine-made products and packages where all the proceeds went to the relief fund as well. And we also had some other donations from like the Maine Automobiles Association go to that fund as well. So we were really grateful for all those partners who understand how important tourism was. And that was all back in April. And here we are in June, still needing a lot more relief. We also wanted to give an opportunity during that time to tell the stories of the businesses in the industry. And so we via Zoom, as we've all come accustomed to, we created a Voices of Tourism piece, and we were really pleased that it came together so quickly. And again, this is almost 2 months ago now that we're talking about it. So it's still relevant, but some of it is a little bit outdated considering that we were talking about these things 2 months ago. So I'll quickly share that video, and then I'll start to get into some of the things that we've have been currently working on that affect us today. So.
We have been hit really hard by this. The first couple weeks of this was just absolutely devastating to me.
So recently it's been, a halt on new reservations and quite a few guests canceling.
On March the 11th, things pretty much came to a screeching halt for us. So we're not there within a day or two. Within 3 days, we lost $500,000 worth of book revenue.
Everything kind of came to a halt mid-March. Became pretty apparent to us that we weren't going to be starting the season on time, and then within a short amount of time, it really kind of looked like the season was in jeopardy.
Being in the beer industry in Maine, we rely a lot on people going out, being social. The effects of COVID-19 have obviously brought everything here to a screeching halt.
Tourism is so important. There's so much that we all have to offer. We're just going to have to think a bit differently about how we do things and what we offer.
We're investing in all the things that will allow us to open the doors right away and get back to business right away.
We actually have a reason to have some people on the books right now on payroll doing things that we wouldn't normally have this time of year. We're going to do meals to go, and we're going to service our community a little bit more than we would.
We've been providing virtual tours on our website. We've been providing educational opportunities to our fans.
my wife Nancy decided, well, if people have to stay home, then we're going to have to figure out how to get the oil and vinegars to them. So she instituted a free shipping program. We're in the middle of making hand sanitizer for all hospitals, nursing homes, and stuff like that. So it's definitely not as tasty as bourbon, but it's not supposed to be.
So it's easy to get overwhelmed by, the worry and what's going to happen and all of that. But, we'll go through it. We have and we will. And, it's really encouraging to see how many people in the tourism industry are being resourceful and creative and finding ways to get through it.
My advice is to just stay positive. I've kind of taken on a mindset that we're a day closer today than we were yesterday to being on the other side of this.
When this is over, there's going to be so much pent-up energy for people to get out. They're going to want to go somewhere safe. Maine is viewed as being safe.
Once everyone gets back to traveling, I'm kind of telling people what's a better place to be than a remote island in Maine.
During this time, people are going to be looking for places that are a little more removed. They're going to look to get back in touch with the outdoors.
This is definitely not fun to go through, but we will all come out the other end of it. My name is David Woods. I'm co-founder of Wiggly Bridge Distillery.
I'm Jeff Iaquesa. I'm the president and general manager of the Portland Sea Dogs.
I'm Stacy Grissetti. I run Hardy Boat Cruises.
Hi, I'm Scott Riccio. I'm with Northeast Charter and Tour Bus Company.
And I'm Tour.
So that was I'm always really proud of the industry that we serve and that I'm a part of, because those are the people who really make it and do incredible work to welcome people here to the state of Maine. And it's also really important. I kicked it off with talking about how tourism touches all parts of the communities. And it does, but tourism also encompasses so many types of businesses. And I think that video helps recognize that. And there's so many businesses that are that aren't necessarily getting a lot of the publicity as much as hotels and restaurants are. But people like Scott Riccio, who owns Northeast Charter and Tours, it's the motor coach industry, and the group tours are they're non-existent this year. The attractions, the Portland Sea Dogs, won't play a game. And all those things have a huge effect on everything. We often don't necessarily think about the motor coach industry because it's a vehicle, it's a cog in the wheel of the industry to get people from one place to another, but it's a huge industry. And when they bring 50 people, 60 people, from one place to another, that's a huge loss in the economy when those dollars are not being spent. So it's been, anyone who's followed the news can probably has seen the fact that our association, along with Hospitality Maine and the Retail Association and the Camp Crown Owners Association and Ski Maine, together we form what's called the Tourism Alliance. And we've been in the media quite a bit, especially as recently as last Friday, with trying to push forth a Maine hospitality tourism recovery plan. And we've been trying to push for alternatives to the 14-day quarantine that's still in place, as well as the testing option. We've heard loud and clear from our industry and our partners that it's not a workable solution. And we can see by the numbers that is truly the case. There's a lot of challenges and issues that go into it. A lot of the testing challenges is, I think the administration, put that forth with the understanding that there's going to be testing readily available in other markets. And so far, what we have seen is that's just not the case, unfortunately. So having somebody get tested before they come here to the state of Maine is not really a viable option. And so it's killing the industry right now. We're very concerned about what we can salvage for the rest of the season without any group tours, without cruise ships, without attractions, fairs, concerts, all those things happening. The only thing that's left to really rely on is the individual travelers. And so it's been an incredible challenge to try to list some restrictions when compared to the other states in New England. Really not just New England, but around the country, the lower 48, Maine has the strictest restrictions that are in place. And it's really providing a roadblock to the industry and to Maine's economy. Now, it's certainly not lost on me that there's another side to the coin, and that's keeping Maine safe. And that is certainly an incredibly important part of what makes Maine an attractive destination, is that it is a safe place to come and visit. But we have to find some alternatives to be able to make it so people can come. Because right now they're going to other places. I think a majority of people who answer reservation lines for lodging establishments are having a really hard time trying to explain to their customers, their visitors, what exactly needs to be done, or if there could potentially be any changes with it. And we're certainly hopeful that there could be some changes, but every day that goes by, it makes the situation even dire. And so generally, tourism people are optimistic. Generally, I'm a pretty optimistic person myself. And I think that Maine has an opportunity to really come back and recover because one thing that people are looking for in destinations is that it's a safe destination. And Maine is absolutely a safe destination. And we want to keep it that way. We want to make sure that visitors are safe. We want to make sure that employees are safe. We want to make sure that the communities remain safe. And so it's important that those things do stay that way. Maine is a drive market, and right now, that's more people feel safer driving in cars than they do hopping on an airplane and going to other destinations. So again, that makes us helps us out because we are a drive market in general. And because there really isn't an international market to even go to right now, it certainly limits, where people can go on vacations. Recently, we have seen some trends, according to the U.S. travel, that people are starting to feel more safe, more confident in going out and planning their vacations over the next 6 months. And so we're hopeful that as things start to recover, that we'll start to see more confidence within travelers, and that they will want to go out and explore more. Over the last 2 weeks, there's been more of an increase in that confidence level. And so we hope to see that continue. And we hope that we can continue to work with the administration to try to find alternatives that are workable for everybody. We certainly want to keep everybody safe, and in no means are we advocating for opening up recklessly. And we're not even talking about profits anymore. We're talking about survivability for businesses. Basically, the plan that we had rolled out last Friday at a press conference in the DeMillo's parking lot with our partners was called the Maine Hospitality, Tourism, and Retail Recovery Plan. And it was a starting point. We realized that there's a lot of things that can certainly change within it. But it was a recommendation that we felt needed to start a conversation about supporting the industry and the needs of the industry to help start the economy. And so basically what it asked for was the state has $1.25 billion of stimulus money. And we asked essentially for 800 million of it. And a lot of people have said, well, it's a big number. And it is a big number, but the tourism industry is a huge industry. last year in 2019, it was a $6.5 billion industry for the state of Maine, welcoming over 37 million people. And supporting 110,000 jobs as well. So it's a huge industry for us, and this situation has been detrimental to the industry. So we asked for a lot of support for it. And so just in a real quick breakdown, basically we had broken it down into a variety of different aspects, where we asked for $400 million to go to small businesses of 50 or less in the means of emergency action grants, which could be used for rent relief, mortgages, operating expenses, payroll, things of that nature. $300 million for businesses that were over 50 employees. We asked for $10 million for 501c6 organizations. For those of you who are unaware, 501c6 organizations are generally the trade associations, chambers of commerce, who do a lot of the heavy lifting to keep the communities together. And these organizations, unfortunately, were not eligible for the PPP program. And there's a lot of reasons behind it. Some of it is because a lot of those organizations have big lobbyists throughout the country, and Congress didn't feel that that was appropriate. And then there's also the side of it that the NFL is also a 501c6 organization. So there are some roadblocks that went into it. But it also had a negative consequence on a lot of smaller organizations, such as the local chambers and the destination marketing organizations that are responsible for marketing tourism. Those are all 501c6 organizations which did not get any help. And those organizations are certainly needed to make sure that the communities have the resources that they need, but to also market those communities. We also advocated for $15 million for technical assistance to be used with that could be used in a variety of different places, such as like CEI and the small business or the small business development centers and so on. We also wanted to make sure that the Maine Office of Tourism funding stayed whole, so that they were able to continue to market the state of Maine effectively. The way that the tourism fund is funded, just so everybody knows, it's a 5% of the meals and lodging tax goes back into the tourism funds. Typically, it's usually around $16 to $17 million a year. At least that's where it's been over the last few years. Obviously, with not having business happening right now, that would certainly take a hit over the next year or two. And so we recommended that fund stay whole, so Maine can continue to market itself aggressively, especially when it needs it the most over the next couple of years. We also advocated for $50 million for employees who have been affected throughout this situation, and then $10 million to reinvest it back into the workforce, and some educational opportunities there. So it's by no means is this plan written in law. I mean, only the governor and the legislators can make that happen. And there's a lot of discussion to be held on this. I was pleased to see that the subcommittee on tourism and hospitality and retail for the Economic Recovery Committee was focused on talking about this plan this morning in their meeting. So we're encouraged, and we certainly hope that we can move things in a positive manner that can be supportive of the industry and hopefully get things back on track. I think one of the best lines that we can say is easily by restarting, the best way to restart the economy is by restarting travel. And I think that's an incredibly important point. And this plan that we had put forth, really in a nutshell, I think it's to get businesses to survive this year so they can recover for next year. And that's, I think that's as simply as I can put it right there. So I guess with that, that's kind of where we are today. We're certainly, we're going to continue to push forth for some alternatives that can hopefully help welcome more people to the state of Maine this year and do it safely. And so that's where we're at, and that fight continues. The urgency feels like it's incredible. It's like every 5 minutes there's like something new. There's a new meeting. There's new talks. There's new strategies. We're constantly on the phone in meetings with our partners, hearing from our members, our businesses, on what's needed. And we're going to continue to advocate and do our best to serve the industry the best that we can. And in all honesty, we're really looking forward to getting back to what we do best, and that's welcoming people to the state of Maine and promoting the state of Maine. That's what we want to do, and that's what we want to get back to. So with that, I guess, Katie, I'll turn it back over to you, and we'll go through any questions, or I'll do my best to answer them.
Perfect. Thank you, Tony, for taking the time this morning. So again, put any questions that you have in the chat box. I did have a couple questions that were sent ahead of time. So for people traveling around the state of Maine for staycations, how will the visitor centers on the highway and around the state look like, or be different for visitors this year?
That's a great question. And I can actually answer that because we run them.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that? I don't think people realize that you guys cover all the visitor centers and stuff like that.
Yeah, so there are 7 state visitor centers in the state of Maine. Kittery is the biggest one, so it's the entry point to the state of Maine. And then we also operate Yarmouth, Hamden northbound and southbound, Fryeburg, Calais, and Holton are the visitor centers. And then there's certainly some talks and some movement on a brand new one that would be the Acadia Gateway Center up in Trenton, but that's not built yet. So hopefully down the road that will happen. But those are the 7 state visitor centers. Usually we see about 500,000 people go through those centers every year. We work with all our partners to distribute all the brochures, and we staff them. We also do the cleaning side of it as well. And that was something that was new to the organization about 3 years ago or 2 years ago, where we picked up the cleaning side of it. We were always getting blamed for things not getting done, or if trash wasn't done, or the bathrooms were dirty. And so we felt we could do a better job. And so we partnered with the Department of Transportation, who actually owns the buildings, in most cases, to provide those services. So all the employees stay there, are MTA employees. And the bathrooms stayed open 24/7 throughout this whole situation. It provided critical infrastructure for resources such as truckers and so on, to keep the supply chain moving during the last 3 months. The visitor centers portion of it actually just opened back up this past Monday. And we had put forth and made some recommendations for a guidance checklist for visitor centers that we had worked with DUCD to get passed. And basically it was a mix between the general guidance checklist, the retail checklist, and then also we looked at what other state visitor centers around the country were doing for safety protocols. Basically, what you'll see differently when you walk into those visitor centers is a majority of it will be the same, but taking the cue from a lot of the retail protocols, trying to space things out a little bit more, keeping safe distances. If there's a line for people who need information, obviously they're checked off in 6 feet intervals. We have plexiglass and sneeze guards up, so the visitor counselors have some barrier between the visitor. The biggest question and the biggest debate was always about what about the brochures and people taking those and touching those. And the way that we looked at it is there's been studies that says, well, there's not a whole lot of effect that happens on brochure collaterals, that it's the chance of transmission is relatively low according to the CDC. But we looked at it, it's no different than if you go into a grocery store or any other retail place. If you pick up a product, you should take it. And so we have signage within the visitor centers that essentially say, if you touch the brochure, please take the brochure. So if you pick it up, take it with you, rather than put it back. in all honesty, that's what we want to have happen anyways. All the brochures are free, so we want people to take those and take as much collateral and information as they can. The more that we can get people to see what Maine has to offer is better. So we're certainly encouraging all Mainers to go into the visitor centers and explore more of what Maine has to offer. Certainly this is a great opportunity for them and for all of us to take advantage of some great deals that are out there and to support our neighbors in the industry as well.
Another question I got was, have your marketing efforts changed with COVID to push staycations instead of out-of-staters coming in?
Yeah, so our marketing is a little bit different than what the Maine Office of Tourism does. So the Maine Office of Tourism are the folks who really do the majority of the marketing for the state of Maine. But we do, it's odd because they do kind of like the dream side of it, and we do a lot of the planning side of it. And so some of the marketing that we do is promoting our membership and trying to expose our membership to the traffic that the Maine Office of Tourism generates. We also, our marketing efforts are geared towards some of the awareness and the advocacy side of how much tourism impacts everything, such as within those I Am Maine tourism campaign that I showed earlier, or the Voices of Tourism campaign. But the things have definitely changed. I mean, we've been, working with the Office of Tourism. They just launched an in-state campaign along with the Maine or New Hampshire and Vermont campaign, because those two states can travel freely without a COVID test or quarantining. So they're now doing digital campaigning along with some TV spots, trying to get people to revisit Maine or to rethink Maine. And we've pushed it out to our membership the best that we can to have them give us all the coupons and deals or promotions and specials that they have going on, so we can help funnel that to our audience as well. So those are the things that we've been trying to capitalize off of and get as much exposure for our membership as we can.
Okay. Question in the chat box from Alec Rogers, who is an hotel owner in the Augusta area. With stakeholders' desperate circumstances, with the stakeholders in desperate circumstances and having deeply vested interests, is it hard to be confident about what is the best balance between public health and economic interests when we listen to the news or the opinions of advocates for the industry and interest groups? We have heard that the administration has ignored the input of industry groups. How fair is that characterization of current administration in your view?
It's a tricky question to answer publicly. I guess it's been.
You are recorded, right?
Yeah. I think it's been frustrating. It's been extremely frustrating. The economic side of it doesn't seem to necessarily be resonating as much as the public health side of it is. And we certainly don't want to underestimate the public health and safety. I mean, nobody wants to see anyone get sick, and especially on vacation. But the economic side of it, especially when it comes to tourism, it's been incredibly frustrating. We've been asked, to supply feedback, which we've done, and offer some alternative recommendations, and oftentimes those don't necessarily result in some alternative measures right now. So we continue to be hopeful, and we're going to continue to push the agenda forward. I mean, I don't know if you can take these as small victories, but moving, July 1st up to June 26th, we know how big that week is. Nonetheless, the testing, is still in place, and the 14-day is still in place. So those are some big challenges that, until those are out of the way, we're going to continue to see some major change. We know, we was looking at the data that just came out for the month of April. Lodging was down 80%. And most of the lodging places that we know of right now have been running May and June at 5, 8, 10%, if they're lucky, occupancy. So I mean, that's not sustainable. and so the urgency is incredible.
So that kind of leads into my next question that was submitted before is what efforts is MTA working on with the quarantine and the testing? Last week we had Steve from Hospitality Maine talk about his staff calling, rest of the states in New England and say, I'm going to visit Maine, I need a test, and nobody would do it unless they were having symptoms. So with that barrier, do you see that being lifted sooner, or what kind of efforts are you guys doing?
Well, that's exactly what we're working on. Steve and I and Curtis from the Retail Association, we talk multiple times throughout each day. Right now, as recently as last night, we supported an email that went out to DCD, stating that fact that all indications that we see and that are out there is that there isn't adequate testing availability to be able to provide that people can get before they come here. And that's one of the things that the administration was putting forth as one of the things that they had said was there's more testing readily available, which can make this a potential solution. And what we're seeing is that's just not the case right now, unfortunately. And so people can't get a test before they come here because they either have to show symptoms, have a doctor's recommendation to be able to do so. I think that, there might be some places here and there that you could walk in and get it, but it's not there yet. And we're in the middle of June right now, and people want to make their reservations. They want to make their plans, and we want to be able to provide those lifelong memories that they can make here in the state of Maine. But if they can go to Cape Cod and not have to do that, or if they can go to upstate New York to the Adirondacks and not have to do that, if they can go to New Hampshire and not have to do that, they're going to choose alternative destinations, and that's just the reality of it right now.
So to finish it out, I'll have one final question. As of right now, the governor's guidelines, stage 3 is July and August. Are you hopeful that will stay in place, or that maybe more hopeful that it will end earlier, and come fall, the tourism industry will be open widely, there will be no quarantine, no testing, come September we'll be wide open? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we certainly hope that the fall will be strong. I mean, these things are so hard to predict right now, but we certainly are optimistic that the fall will be strong. We need it to be strong, so businesses can make it through the winter. I mean, that's really what we're trying to do, is we're trying to get businesses to be able to make it through the winter so they can really recover next year. We're certainly hopeful that things can be accelerated a little bit more, especially with the tourism businesses. I mean, a lot of the pressure really comes down on the hospitality, the lodging establishments. A lot of the burden is put on them to police what's happening right now, whereas retail and restaurants and so on don't necessarily have to be. They wouldn't necessarily have to ask for a negative test, or if somebody's quarantined. And so it puts a lot of pressure on the hotels, and it's a little bit of an unfair burden to that segment of the industry. But we're certainly hopeful that we can make some forward progress. I think everything, according to the administration, is data driven on their behalf, and so anything that we can do to help get those data to work in our favor, we need right now. We could use a little good luck.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, any other final questions in the chat box from anyone? I thank you again, Tony, for taking the time this morning and for all your efforts across the state for getting tourism back in here. It's a huge, even just right here in Central Maine, it impacts us all. So thank you everyone for joining us this morning. Join us next Wednesday for our weekly Chamber Connect. I'd like to thank CMP for being our sponsor again. Hope you guys all have a great day. Happy Father's Day to any fathers out there. And hopefully we'll see you soon. See you later.